Ay, it's a new world, gotta adapt to it. Innovation, information, more than the average. Rushing, please ignore the interruptions, cause this is digital discussions.
All right, guys, so welcome to Digital Discussions. I'm your host, Jayson Siano from Sabre Real Estate Advisors. And today I have a wonderful guest, Max Crespo from Neopolitan Express and Zevv.com, which we'll talk a little bit about, Max. But Max, thank you for joining us today, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. We're doing. We're still here, so we're doing.
That's good. Yeah, man. So, I've been following along. I guess we'll kick it off. I've been following along on your journey through social media. I use social media heavily, and, we do a lot in the restaurant space. And, I actually was traveling with the family. I got out of New York about a month ago, and I was traveling, and I was actually able to see everything from your perspective, which was, I appreciate that very much, man. So tell me about the journey, man, from your perspective in the restaurant space.
So, February, we had our best month. I can't believe this, but we actually had our best month in February in all of our stores. Things seem to be going well. Same stores sales growth month over month and year over year. And the rumbling started at the end of February, early March. And, once March 15th hit, it was incredible. So I grew up here my whole life. As you know, I grew up in New York City, and I've never seen it empty. I never saw it, the roads barren. We have mobile vending units. We have mobile food trucks as well as stores. And one of the things I always gauge is how busy the city is by the commute to JFK. And in my whole life, I never made it to JFK in under 30 minutes, ever, no matter what, ever. We were making trips to JFK in 14 minutes.
Wow.
So we, because we had food trucks and because we were able to be nimble, one of the things we were able to do is we helped feed first responders with World Central Kitchen, Rethink, and ourselves. And we went to Mount Sinai, Lenox Hill, SUNY Downstate, and we were feeding up to 2,500 people a day, frontline workers, first responders. And it was great because it kept everybody focused on the task of making food, which is what I believe, food is life, and that's what our people do best. But when you would stop and take a breath and look around, and I was looking at the news, I said, wow, there's something missing here. There's a lack of perspective as to actually what's happening to the city. And what I started doing is, I live in Midtown and I have locations throughout the city, all the way downtown to Wall Street. I started taking my bike and just showcasing what was actually happening on the street. Because what we on CNBC and what we see the market doing is not a reflection as to what's actually happening to small businesses. And for the most part, 90% of the business is gone.
Yep.
They're gone. It's over. And there is an enormous ecosystem and an entire economy that people have taken for granted over the last 20 years, which is your commuter and tourist economy that has only gone up since, call it 1993. That number has tacked upwards every single day. And now it's gone. And we don't know if it's going to come back, as we're currently, you and I are having a conversation today. We're having a meeting right now. We're having a meeting that normally would not have existed pre-COVID. And it's virtual, and people and companies are realizing, I can get productivity. I don't have to sign a lease. So I don't have to send my 5,000 workers to work, which means the local coffee shop, the coffee cart, the food truck, the local pizzeria, the local burger place, the local sandwich place. Look at those salad chains. I mean, Sweet Green, which was everyone's darling,
Yep.
2 weeks ago had one location open in Manhattan. One.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, I want to get your perspective, obviously, on what all that means and the future of the restaurant industry.
By the
Because
way, it's also gotten worse because when we were already on our knees with COVID, now add racial unrest, protests, the George Floyd BLM movement,
yep.
and it's now all of Soho's boarded up.
Yeah. And it's kind of like one thing after the next. The minute that it seems like something's stabilizing, something else is happening right on top of it, and compounding the overall effect. I was about to say that, your perspective is very interesting because you're an innovator, you're ahead of things, which is why you got into the food trucks, which was very smart and obviously becoming a lot more popular. And then also, we're seeing a lot of ghost kitchens and obviously the delivery of food in all different capacities and whatnot. Give me your thoughts on, where the restaurant world's going, because you and I both know restaurants cannot pay their rent at 50% capacity or less, et cetera, et cetera.
So the future of food is look, the economics of food have been challenging. I do not believe in ghost kitchens. And the reason why I do not believe in ghost kitchens, why I think they're built to fail, is because ghost kitchens ignore 90% of the revenue. What most people don't realize is that because we live in bubbles or where we work in bubbles, but 90% of revenue is walk up, pick up.
Right.
You don't have access to walk up or pick up in a ghost kitchen in the third floor or in the basement. You have no street-facing brand presence. So we believe that the future is going to be a hub and spoke model where you're going to have brick and mortar and it's going to be your flagship location or whatever you call it. And then what we were able to do, we were the first company to get the online ordering systems to accept our mobile units as pickup spots. So the mobile delivery driver would come, the Grubhub, the Uber, the Caviar, the DoorDash guy would come to our truck, and that would then extend our delivery radius, because one of the bad things about delivery is slow and cold. 45-minute wait, cold, because it's too far, and restaurants feel they have the need to do that because they have to expand their delivery radius because there's not enough walk-up business. And I push back very aggressively that at 50% a restaurant can't make it. The number in New York City is like 85%.
Yeah.
If you're not at 85% capacity, you're not going to make it. And if you're in nightlife and in nightclubs, you're normally 150 to 200% of legal capacity, and you're still talking about 12 to 15% margin businesses.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a complete reset. I think a lot of the people who weren't making money are, going to go by the wayside. If you see people like Thomas Keller, who's walked away and closed, Per Se has closed Bouchon Bakery. If you see places like, Tap Room closing, these are brand new locations, millions of dollars invested, gone. Aqua Grill, Gotham, all of these places that are closing, that tells me that the seating, the challenging effects of high real estate prices and lower capacity and an artificially inflated wage base. So everyone talks about, a living wage. I believe that most of the business models can't afford that. We can, because our efficiencies are high. We could do $2 million in revenue with 4 people. Whereas normally you need a huge line to do that with 30 people. And what happens now? Now there's no business. What are you going to, all the jobs are gone. And the days of, we're going to raise money at high valuations and we're a tech company, over. So I think New York is going to be very challenged. I think LA is going to be very challenged. I think that people are still yearning for speed, convenience, quality, and safety,
Right.
and how to do so in an economically sustainable and an environmentally sustainable way. And I think that's where we're poised to do well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you said a lot, and I want to unpack some of it, just to kind of dig in further. But, the New York City is a very unique animal, right? It's unlike.
It's an island unto itself.
Absolutely. And, that in good times, there's tremendous opportunity. I talk to a lot of people in my community that are saying, there will be some companies that were priced out of New York City that will now come in to take advantage of, rents, et cetera, et cetera.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
That's factually inaccurate. Yeah, there's a reason why the rents will go down. You want to know why the rents are going down? Because there's no people here. If there's no people here, I don't care what the rent is. If the rent is zero, it's free. I'm still losing money.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not even, and by the way, it's not just that people aren't there. It's that, all of these businesses are going out of business. And now the landlords, who typically get $150 a foot, have no tenants to lease that space to for $100 a foot, or there is no market right now,
But here's the thing, Jay, and I'm gonna really focus on something that everyone has to really take a very hard look at, and no one is let me give you some statistics. At the height of COVID, 17% of Manhattan residents left Manhattan.
Yep.
Right? Huge number, right? Big number. Except nobody really digs into what that number really means. Let's push back, because I know where I'm from and I'll never forget it. 62% of Manhattan lives above 96th Street. You know what above 96th Street is? Harlem, Washington Heights, Inwood. What percentage lower income? What percentage of above 96th Street left? 0.4%. 0.4%. So that means from the bottom half of Manhattan, which is 38% of residents, that means 50% of the people with a lot of money have left. And now add to the fact the other 1.5 million of commuters that are gone, and add to the biggest whale that we lost, which is the tourist, who spends on average $8 more for every dollar spent than the average resident. And that money is spent on bars, restaurants, hospitality. And that's all gone. So
it's all gone. And then in addition to that, the hotels, right, hospitality, to your point, it's not to mention that the majority of those residents who left that you're referring to, they all went to their other houses, because they're all affluent people they leave the Manhattan in the summer anyway, but they don't leave in March, and come back in after the holidays the next year. They leave for the season typically.
Correct. And now the season is who knows. And more importantly, they're also the business owners that are saying, you know what? My office, look, 49th and 6th, 601 West 26th, 601 West 26th. We have a pizza truck there that does incredible. There's zero revenue, 49th and 6th, office towers everywhere, 0 in revenue. That's insane.
It's insane.
And that means to me, if a landlord says to me, well, I was getting $300 a square foot, I'll give it to you for $150. I'm telling you now, the number is 0. That's how much you're going to get. If you want to be a landlord today in New York City and deal with, it's a percentage of rent. That's it. I'm offering the same thing everywhere. I'll give you 10% of the rent. I'll give you 10% of revenue for 2 years. After that, we could readjust. You don't like it? Great. Stay empty, because no one could do the business. No one could do the business.
I was on a panel discussion yesterday that was, talking about landlords deferring rent. And, I represent a lot of companies throughout the country, but, in New York City as well. and we're having conversations with our landlords to talk about how are we supposed to pay you the rent that we technically owe you while we're closed for business. And by the way, when we're able to reopen at a reduced capacity, not only
we're losing more money.
We need to pay you the rent that we agreed to pay you based on a certain pro forma that has been cut in half or even more. And we need to now tack on that deferred rent for 3-4 months on top of that. So our rent, it didn't even stay the same. It actually increased. So what's crazy to me, Max, and what, you know, I'm a realist like you are, and you're actually on the streets watching everything happen. You know, it's the trickle up effect. So
Correct.
If the tenants can't pay the rent, the landlords can't pay the bank. The bank needs relief from the government. If that doesn't happen, what happens?
I got one better. What no one's talking about. Everyone's talking about the landlord having to pay their mortgage. What about the property taxes?
Yeah.
What about the loss of sales tax revenue to the city? We're already
Right.
$10 billion in the hole. So I'm very concerned about long-term real estate. I think that it's going to get ugly sometime in November, December, January.
Yeah.
Because right now we're still in the fog of war. For the most part, everyone's talking about a second wave. We're still not finished with the first wave. To put some things in perspective, everyone's, you know, we're all patting ourselves on the back because New York's doing such a great job. New York has on average over the last 2 weeks, like 650 cases a day. To put that in perspective, the country of Spain, which has 5 times our population, has 200 cases a day. So we're still in this, and you know, I think that it's going to where the people are and serving people where they are, where we in the hospitality have to start looking. I think that there are some concepts that I call aspirational experiential that have a moat built around it. So for example, like Catch and Catch Steak, people want to go there, to be seen to go there. Cipriani is another brand which has aspirational experiential. It's really not so much about the food. It's more about I am somebody because I have a brand affiliation, because the same way someone wears a Patek Philippe, the same way someone drives a G-Wagon Mercedes-Benz, someone is at Catch, someone is at Cipriani, and it says something about the person who they are to them.
But at the same time, listen, you know, Eugene is
love him.
Yeah, he's great.
Love him.
And you know, Mark, obviously, they're great and they do a great job. But the question, and Tillman Fertitta is their partner, right?
Thank God.
And thank God. But a lot of Tillman's other concepts are not paying rent.
No, they're not. And here's the difference. That's where we got to go to, which is the majority of the people aren't that. The majority of the people are, it's almost like, you know how tech companies called software as a service?
Right.
Food is a service.
Yep.
And food has to be a service. And we're going to have to learn how to pivot and be nimble. We're doing that already. You know, hospitals, I realized, are always going to be in business, especially during Armageddon. There are pockets of demand, public places. You know, it's how tech evolves and how tech doesn't become tech for tech space, but tech for food. Believe, and that's what we're trying to do. I think that, again, outside of, I always have a saying. There's this place, you know, west of the Hudson River, east of Sacramento. It's called America, and in America, drive-throughs are actually, people with drive-through sales are higher, and they're doing better from a business perspective because they are actually not opening their front of house. There is no seating. So they're only doing drive-through, and that's doing incredibly well. how do we learn from that? What can we learn from that? What can we learn from an urban environment to make our experience better, more of a pass-through? And then how are we going to address the fact that most people, I would say 50% of restaurants are gone for good in New York City.
I think that's even low. I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's going to.
No, well, here's the thing. I think they're going to, you're missing
reopen
50%. Yeah, and then get absolutely shattered. And then you'll be left with whoever's left. I think it's going to be like a 20 to 25% number. And then we're going to figure out what the economics are.
Yeah, not to mention, listen, you're first off, everything you said about drive-throughs, clearly spot on. You and I have had that discussion pre-COVID, you know.
Yeah.
So
trying to build the first drive-through pizzeria. I'm going to do it. So I was looking at Long Island.
I'm going to help you. So
exactly.
So we, my company has represented Starbucks Coffee exclusively for going on, I think, 15 or 16 years
and
now.
And a crushing drive-through.
We've done
crushing.
We've converted those cafes to drive-throughs since the beginning of time, and everybody's just paying attention to it now. Starbucks was ahead of it the same way that Nike is ahead of it by closing stores and converting their sales to their app and everything else. They get it. There's a lot of companies that were doing this because COVID-19 is basically gasoline, sticks of dynamite thrown on what was already happening incrementally. And that's why you're an innovator in the food space and understand food trucks, understand the value of that drive-through.
And that's where I think the one thing that we should do with mobile food and technology is, alongside of real estate professionals, is give brands real opportunity data. And what does that mean? Right now, as smart as you are, there's still an inherent risk of where to open up, because we don't know where the people are or whether the brand is going to resonate in that specific area. What if all of a sudden we could take a mobile vending unit that is state-of-the-art, that's zero emission, that has access to the technology where all the online ordering systems aggregate to your point of sale system, and you're able to open as a pickup delivery option and seed the marketplace and say, hey, look, this is what we've learned. There's a demand for this and this. This isn't working so well. Maybe we should add a breakfast component. Hey, maybe people, what I've learned over the last 3 months, maybe it's going to resonate further on, is that the ticket numbers are down, but the average order is higher because people are ordering for meals for groups of people. How do we expand on that? And the easiest way to expand on that is with a mobile unit, because you could be nimble. When you sign a lease and you put nails to walls, you're stuck.
Yeah.
You're pretty much stuck. Whereas let's find out where you're working. Let's find an area that we feel is going to do well. And once we realize, okay, now you find the actual great place to be, and they're going to sign a lease there. Great. We send the mobile vending unit. So while they're building, they're already starting their online ordering, their delivery. They're getting people excited about what's coming. And then they can do it again.
Yeah. It's like pre-sales and branding and letting people know that you're going to be there. I mean, listen, we rely heavily at Sabre. We rely heavily on data, location intelligence, AI technology. And we're basing, if you have a good enough sample of existing locations, right, we're able to basically take that data and understand and decipher the psychographics, the demographics, things of that nature, and ultimately have pretty good intelligence on where we should be looking. But what you're saying is actually brilliant, where you could actually put a truck there and actually test the market before you sign a lease too.
Correct. And that gives you power, because then I'd say to you, okay, now negotiate. Here are the numbers. Go negotiate with them.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that, the formula for landlords and tenants, it's going to change, to your point. But
Has
the
to.
funny part is, are you having conversations now where landlords are almost acting as if nothing's happening still? Like, that's the typical landlord mentality. It's like,
So
well,
I'll give you. I'm going to tell you.
percent, and you know what? We'll instead of 150, it's 135 a foot.
Yeah. So yeah, the larger landlords, especially, very arrogant still. Um, you know, Hudson Yards is a perfect example. Um, you know, there's a project that. How is that even going to be viable? Think about that. How is that even going to be viable?
Right.
Office towers and malls. I mean, and you know, the response from the top is, oh, people are bored about working at home. They want to come back to work. I've never heard that. I've never heard that. The only people who say that are landlords, because they're looking at it as, you know, oh, there's no, you know, every landlord said the same thing to me, which is there is, you know, nobody wants to work from home. Nobody's productive. Everybody hates Zoom calls. And it's insane, because what are they going to do? Be honest? They're not going to do that. They're not going to tell you the truth. They're going to lie, because they've already, and by the way, I love my landlord friends, but nobody put a gun to your head and told you to go refinance after 3 years. Nobody told you to do that. You did that because you wanted to, because you're greedy. That's it. You know, oh, you have a building, you own a building, I sign a lease. You can't wait to beat down the door of the bank to refinance, to suck more and put more debt on it. Well, debt is a, you know, it's a bitch.
It is.
It's a bitch.
That's when we're going to start to see, you know, once these properties are you know, in just, I mean, there's so many people that are defaulting.
Soho is dead. Like Soho especially, because those aren't high rises. There's not a lot of office tenant there. Those are like 5-story mixed use commercial buildings. They are smoked, because the days of retail was already on its knees. And the days of $800 a square foot space in Soho, you know, I'm never going to get, oh, I have space for you. It's prime. I have the best location. You're going to kill it here. You're going to do so great. I give it to you. Because of you, I give you good deal. I give you $900 a square foot. Go free, you know, get the hell out of here. Hey, nobody, it's all gone. It's over. All right. That scam is over. And I don't know what they're going to do.
All right. This is interesting, because the majority of your business is New York City, correct? Or
yeah. So we've already started expanding into other markets like LA and South Florida and Miami. But my focus now is tier 2 cities.
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be a lot of growth there. There's a lot of space. You know, people in these tier 2 cities, they want great food too. You know what? We have to have our heads, unless there is a complete realignment, which I would have to defer to someone like you and say, okay, because I've spoken to, you know, brokers at Cushman Wakefield. Brandon Singer, great guy. I said, you know, when are these landlords going to wake up to like the facts that are on the ground? No one knows. No one's been able to tell me, like, you know, oh, you know, second quarter, June 2022. Because if you, I don't know if you saw, there was a great survey of the Fortune 500 CEOs, all of them. And the one question that really jumped out at me, which was, when do you envision 75% of your workforce to come back to work? And the number one answer, which was 51% of CEOs, was never.
Wow.
Never. So if you've lost 25% of the gross, and you're what? I mean, you know the best operators in the world. Starbucks probably has the best food margin with coffee. What are they at? 14%? 15%?
Right.
Store level EBITDA. I like calling it SLEBITA. Where are you going to make that money if you're already on a 12%? This isn't tech. Listen, everyone who's listening, food is not tech. It costs money. You can't tell Baldor, US Foods, hey, look, I'm doing another round and we got a higher valuation. They'll be like, that's nice. Where's my fucking money? You owe me money. That's it. You don't pay, you don't get a delivery. So it's going to be really difficult unless landlords have a come to Jesus moment and say, you know what? We didn't see this coming. No one did. Go to the banks, see what type of workout you could do, because that's the other issue. Guys like you who would represent me, I'd say, look, offer them $5,000. And you'd say, yeah, I can, but they can't take that deal because their covenant, they'll break their covenant.
Right.
So something's going to break.
A lot's going to break. I mean, there's no other way. And I think that's the answer to your question, because you said it at the beginning of this conversation. You said, it is going to be, we're at the early stages of everything. We're not talking about the second round. We're in the first round. We're not even, I love when people are talking about this whole conversation as if we're getting out of the woods.
No.
We're barely in the woods.
You're 90 seconds in the first round with an angry young Mike Tyson. That's where you're in right now. And he's throwing vicious haymakers at you every single day. And you're like, oh my God, I'm still here. Jesus Christ. Oh, Jesus. That's what you're doing. And he wants your head on the mic. You're like, oh my God, what am I doing here? Because no matter what happens right now, unless there is a vaccine or a cure, no one is coming back to work in droves. If anybody is listening that lives in a high-rise building or in a building with over 5 stories, you're not allowed to have more than 3 people in an elevator in your residence.
You know how long it's going to take you to get up and down every time you need to go up and down?
You're gonna have to be there 4:00 in the morning to get to the 50th floor.
Oh.
And God forbid, you want to go to lunch? Great. It's going to be 7 hours for lunch, because everyone's gonna those days of like lunch rushes. How is that going to happen?
You're spot on.
And then let's take tourism. Again, not to say anything bad, but are you going to want to go to Rock Center when you see like 45 different people going to the top of the rock in a jammed up elevator from all over the world? Thanks, I'll take the next one.
Yeah.
Nope, I'll take who's going to put their kids in jeopardy?
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot. This is, when I was told people, the food business is a war, and everybody thinks of war and they think of like Desert Storm and they think of like guys behind the computer and drones. This is a civil war. Limbs are being blown off. People are, it's brutal. It's bloody. It's a massacre. And, it's literally the first round. Yeah. And I could only see it. If you continue doing the same thing over again, that's the definition of insanity. I think that people are going to have to stop being insane and start looking at what can we do to pivot and focus on where the people are, right? And then how can we start, going to landlords? I do believe you should speak to landlords. I really do. I think that one of the best things to do with landlords is actually show them. Nothing is more powerful than showing them a point of sale, for the month and showing down 70%.
Oh yeah. Hey, listen, man, there are a lot of good landlords out there,
Correct.
And they're in a tough position too, and they want to help. And in some cases they're doing their best and their hands are tied and there's only so much they can do. And at a certain point, like you said, there's a come to Jesus talk, and it's, hey, listen, if that's all you guys could do, then I have no choice but to close.
Correct.
And that's where we are,
And by the way, hold on. That's where we're beginning, because a lot of people are now coming back. Oh, it's phase 2, it's phase 3. I'm going to open. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then they're like, wait a minute, where is everybody?
Right. So in closing, by the way, I was excited to have you on because you're real. You get it. You know, you're pulling no punches. You're going to tell people what you see and how you feel about it. So I want to end on this, man. Based on everything you just said, I agree with all of it. We're very aligned in our thinking. Where and we're focused primarily on the restaurant side. You know, retail, entertainment, fitness, well, all this other stuff. You know, there's different scenarios and a lot more difficult to like take a fitness concept, put it in a
Very
mobile,
difficult. Yeah.
you know? So, but you know, tell me your thoughts on, you know, the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the restaurant industry and in New York City. And you
Okay, so great. Restaurant industry. People are going to have to start looking at their unit level economics and realize that the days of saying, you know, I believe the venture capital, private equity, oh, I'm going to sell at a multiple of sales, I think that's over. So I think that the guys who depended on the mom and pop or single unit restaurant, which is like a 1.5 to 2 star New York Times review, and your average ticket was like $160 to $180, I think you're going to be very challenged. I think it's going to be very difficult. I also think that servers are going to be very, very challenged because, you know, nobody's going to enjoy that experience anymore. I think New York City, the next 2 years is going to be cataclysmic. It's going to be brutal. We're going to have to redefine. There's going to have to be a redefine of what work is. I know everyone has short memories, but until there's a vaccine or a cure, but let's not forget that businesses care about the bottom line. And if they realize, hey, I don't have to spend money on that office space and I get the same production, they're going to take that savings. So I think that restaurants, there's a difference between a restaurant and a brand, in my opinion. And there's a difference between a chef and an operator. And I think that chefs are going to have to start thinking a little bit more like operators, and operators are going to have to start thinking a little bit more like chefs, because people are going to want to have quality, but in convenience. It can't just be about speed and, you know, I'm going to lower my food costs, and you're going to have to listen to your rising star in the kitchen, because people are yearning for that. The data tells me that people are willing to spend a little bit more for things that are quality, and they're willing to wait a little bit more for things that are quality. Right. So again, New York City is a bubble unto itself. I think that major markets are going to see spikes in openings. Then you're going to see what happened in LA and what happened in Miami. You're going to see spikes in COVID cases. And then you're going to see, you know, who's going to be able to weather that storm. If you are losing money or didn't have, you know, a rainy day fund, your space is probably going to be, you know, shuttered.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. And I think that after that wave has crashed, so March of 2021, I would say call Sabre Realty and Sabre Advisors, and then really say, okay, this is what I'm looking for. What are the landlords that are in good cash positions that can actually work with me, and take a long-term look at every space, because there are going to be spaces that are out there.
For sure. Listen, I love that. I appreciate your time, man. And it was
Thank
great.
you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Look forward to the next one.
Likewise, brother. Be good. Enjoy the 4th. And thank you again for your time, man.
Thank you. Stay well. Be well.
I will. You too. Take care, Max.
'Cause this is digital discussions.